Hey, buddy, hit that subscribe. Just a sec for you, but it means the world to me. The morning my husband died, the house felt louder than it ever had before. Not because of noise, but because of the silence. His chair at the kitchen table sat empty, like it was mocking me, daring me believe he'd really never sit there again. We were married for 41 years. 41. And just like that, I was alone. The grief counselor kept saying, "Time will soften the pain." What she didn't tell me was that loneliness hits harder than grief ever does. My name is Margaret Collins. I was 64 years old, broke, tired, and starting over in a world that clearly didn't care. My husband handled everything: bills, repairs, paperwork, even grocery runs when my hips started acting up. When he passed, reality slapped me hard. Medical bills had drained our savings dry. Life insurance barely covered the funeral. My daughter lived across the country and checked in once in a while. My son had his own mess to deal with. So I did what desperate people do. I sold a house we built our life in and moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city. It wasn't home, but it was all I could afford. At my age, job options were trash. Let's be real. But a local senior center needed a part-time receptionist, and apparently wrinkles weren't a deal breaker. The pay was low, the hours were short, but it gave me a reason to get out of bed. Every morning, I rode the bus downtown, always hopping off 2 stops early so I could walk the rest of the way. "Doctor's orders for my hip," he said. Honestly, I just needed air and something that made me feel human again. That's when I first noticed him. Every single morning, same spot, a wooden bench outside the public library. An older black man with silver hair, a worn-out jacket, and eyes that didn't beg, but noticed. He never shouted for money, never chased people down, just sat there calm, proud, with a paper cup resting by his feet. Something about him hit different. Maybe it was how straight he sat, like life hadn't completely beaten him yet. Or maybe it was how he nodded at strangers, even the ones who pretended he didn't exist. The first time I stopped, I felt awkward as hell. I dropped a few dollars into his cup and muttered something polite. He looked up at me and said, "Bless you, ma'am. You got a good soul." I walked away with tears in my eyes and no clue why. From that day on, stopping became routine. Some days I gave $5, some days just loose change. But we talked, really talked. His name was Samuel Brooks, 73 years old, retired history teacher, lost his wife, lost his pension in a shady scam, lost his apartment when the building got flipped into luxury condos. Now he bounced between shelters and sidewalks. It messed me up hearing that. A man who spent decades teaching kids about justice, now invisible to the world. We became friends without realizing it. He asked about my job, my kids, my bad hip. I asked about his students, his wife, his favorite books. Somewhere along the line, that bench became my safe space, my quiet reset before work, the one part of my day that didn't feel empty. Almost a year passed like that. Seasons changed. Life kept moving. Then one morning in early spring, everything flipped. Samuel wasn't sitting. He was standing, pacing. His eyes were scanning the street like he was waiting for trouble. When he saw me, his face went pale. He grabbed my arm hard enough to scare me. "Margaret," he whispered, "you gotta listen to me, and you gotta trust me." My heart dropped. "Something bad is about to happen," he said, "and it's aimed at you." I had no idea what he meant, but the fear in his eyes told me one thing loud and clear. This wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. I laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to accept it. "Samuel, what are you talking about?" I asked, trying to pull my arm back. "I'm just a receptionist. I don't have enemies." He didn't laugh back. His grip tightened just a little. "That's what makes you dangerous," he said quietly. He leaned closer, lowering his voice like the street itself had ears. "Something shady is going down at your job. Real shady. And you're standing closer to it than you think." I felt a chill run straight through me. "You've got the wrong person," I whispered. "I don't even touch the money." "That's the problem," Samuel said. "You notice things without meaning to. and somebody noticed you. He told me to watch the new bookkeeper, the young one with the bright smile and too perfect attitude. Said I needed to pay attention to donation records, missing numbers, weird corrections. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. Don't go home tonight. I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Excuse me? Promise me, he said. I serious. Sleep somewhere else. A hotel, a friend's couch, anywhere but your apartment. I wanted to ask how he knew where I lived, how he knew who I worked with, how he knew anything. But before I could, he let go of my arm and stepped back like nothing had happened. Go to work, he said. Act normal. Don't poke around. Tomorrow morning, I'll explain everything. And just like that, he sat back down on the bench, quiet again, invisible again. The walk to work felt longer than usual. My thoughts were racing like they were late for something. The senior center was calm. Like always, bingo flyers on the walls. Smell of coffee and old books. Same familiar faces. Same routines. And yet, everything felt off. The bookkeeper Samuel mentioned, Ashley, walked past my desk and smiled. Friendly. Normal. Nothing suspicious. I told myself Samuel was just paranoid. Life on the streets messes with people, right? Then the director stopped by my desk. Margaret, she said casually, have you noticed anything strange with the donations lately? My stomach flipped. She explained that a donor's receipt didn't match the amount she remembered giving. Said it was probably nothing. Said the bookkeeper was checking it out. I nodded, pretending I wasn't screaming inside. That's when it hit me. Samuel hadn't guessed. He knew. The rest of the day dragged. Every smile felt fake. Every door opening made my shoulders tense. By the time I clocked out, I was exhausted and wired at the same time. Then the director asked me to step into her office. She closed the door and got straight to it. Money was missing. Not a little, a lot. Tens of thousands. An auditor had already confirmed it. Police would be involved soon. Interviews. Questions. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. I was the perfect fall guy. Old. Broke. Newish. No family nearby. No power. When she finally let me leave, my hands were shaking. Samuel's words echoed in my head. Don't go home tonight. So I didn't. I checked into the cheapest hotel I could find, telling myself I was being dramatic, that I'd laugh about this later. But sleep never came. My chest felt tight. My phone stayed in my hand. At 2:11 a.m., it rang. A police officer told me my apartment building was on fire. My unit was badly damaged. If I had been home, I dropped the phone. Samuel hadn't warned me. He had saved my life. By morning, I knew one thing for sure. Samuel wasn't just a homeless man on a bench. He was watching something dangerous, and he was about to show me proof that would change everything. I didn't even bother changing clothes. I grabbed my coat, called a cab, and told the driver to take me straight downtown. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. All I could think was if Samuel hadn't stopped me, I'd be dead. That thought kept looping in my head like a broken record. When I reached the library, the sun was barely up. The street was quiet. Too quiet. Then I saw him. Samuel stood up the moment our eyes met. Relief washed over his face, so fast it hurt to see. You're alive, he said, his voice cracking. Thank God. I rushed him and grabbed his hands. How did you know? I demanded. My apartment. There was a fire. They said it started on my floor. How did you know? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he nodded toward the bench. Sit. It's time I told you everything. Samuel reached inside his jacket and pulled out a small, beat-up notebook, the kind kids use in school. The pages were packed with tight handwriting, dates, times, notes scribbled in the margins. I've been listening, he said calmly. People talk loud when they think nobody matters around them. He told me it started weeks ago. 2 people sat near him one afternoon, whispering about money, big money, donations, senior centers. One name kept popping up, my workplace. They joked about how easy it was, how old folks never notice, how no one suspects the quiet ones. My stomach twisted. Then it got worse. A few nights ago, those same voices talked about a problem. A receptionist, an older woman who might start asking questions. They said she lived alone. They said accidents happen. Samuel looked me dead in the eye. They said your name. I felt sick. Then he showed me photos. Grainy, dark, but clear enough. My director, standing with a man I'd never seen before. Then another picture. Same group, different place. Coffee shop, late night meeting. They didn't notice me, Samuel said. Nobody ever does. Everything snapped into focus. The fake concern, the private meeting, the warning about police interviews. I hadn't been a witness. I'd been the target. Samuel pressed a notebook into my hands. This is everything. Dates, times, conversations. It ain't perfect, but it's real. I looked at him. This man I'd given spare change to without a second thought. Why? I asked softly. Why risk yourself for me? He smiled. Same gentle smile. Because you treated me like a human being. That hit harder than anything else. The police didn't believe me at first. I could see it in their faces. But the evidence added up. Financial records, surveillance, phone data. The fire? Arson. Not an accident. Someone wanted me gone before I could open my mouth. Arrests came fast after that. The truth came out uglier than I imagined. The director was running the whole thing. The bookkeeper? Family. The missing money? Millions. The fire? Meant to close the case for good. When the trial started, Samuel testified. Clean shirt. Borrowed jacket. Voice steady like he was back in classroom. The courtroom went silent when he spoke. Justice came down hard. But when it was over, Samuel disappeared. No bench. No shelter. No answers. 3 days later, I found him in the hospital. Dehydrated. Weak. Barely holding on. I sat beside his bed and cried. You saved me. I whispered. Now let me save you. And I meant it. I thought the danger was over. But what happened next proved the real fight was just beginning. Because saving my life was only the first thing Samuel had done. Seeing Samuel hooked up to machines didn't feel real. This man had stood between me and death. And now, he looked smaller than the hospital bed he lay on. The doctor pulled me aside and kept it real. Years of untreated diabetes, dehydration, malnutrition. His body had been running on fumes for way too long. He needs help, the doctor said. Long-term help. I already knew that. I sat by Samuel's bed every day. I held his hand when he slept. I read to him when he was awake. And when he apologized because somehow he felt guilty, I shut that down fast. You don't get to apologize, I told him. Not after what you did for me. He smiled weakly. I just didn't want you to end up like me. Forgotten. That broke me. So I went to war. I called social services until they stopped putting me on hold. I tracked down legal aid. I emailed reporters, wrote letters to nonprofits, and told Samuel's story to anyone who would listen. A retired teacher, robbed of his pension, left invisible, nearly dying on a sidewalk after saving someone's life. And people listened. Donations started coming in. Not crazy money, just enough to matter. A lawyer took his case pro bono and reopened the pension fraud. A housing nonprofit fast-tracked him into a small apartment. The school district where he taught, they created a fund in his name. When Samuel finally walked out of the hospital, he cried. So, did I. Move-in day was quiet and perfect. Clean walls, a real bed, a kitchen that actually worked. He kept touching things like they might disappear. I haven't had a place like this in years, he whispered. You do now, I said, and you're not going anywhere. Life slowly settled. I switched jobs. Safer place. Better systems. I learned how to spot fraud like a hawk. The trial wrapped up. Sentences were handed down. Justice landed hard. But the biggest change wasn't any of that. It was the mornings. I still took the bus. Still walked the last few stops. But now, instead of a bench outside a library, I stopped in an apartment building. We drank coffee, talked about history, about life, about how close everything came to ending. One morning, Samuel said something I'll never forget. History isn't just dates, he said. It's choices, small ones, the kind people don't think matter. He looked at me and smiled. You made one small choice that day, and it changed everything. I thought the story was over until I realized what almost didn't happen, and how one small decision could have erased everything we fought for. Some nights, I still wake up thinking about that first morning, the one where I almost didn't stop. I was tired, running late, my hip was hurting, and part of me just wanted to keep walking. If I had, none of this would have happened. That thought messes with me more than the fire ever did. Samuel loved talking about ripples. He said history was built on them. Tiny moments that seem pointless until years later when you finally see the waves. I didn't believe that before. Now, I live by it. While the trial wrapped up, more truth came out. The fraud wasn't just greed. It was planned cruelty. Money meant for meals, transportation, medical help, gone. All because powerful people thought nobody would notice. They were wrong. And they hated that it was an old receptionist and a homeless man who exposed them. Samuel started volunteering at the library, helping kids with homework, teaching history again, even if it was just one table at a time. You should have seen the way his face lit up when a kid finally got it. That was his real home, not an apartment, not a bench, but being useful. My family noticed a change in me too. My daughter called more. My son visited with his kids. They said I sounded stronger. I was, not because I survived something scary, but because I mattered to someone again. One afternoon, Samuel looked at me and said, you saved me before I saved you. I shook my head. No, I said, we saved each other. Because that's the truth. The world didn't suddenly turn kind. People still walk past others like they're invisible. But now I stop every time, not just for money, but for eye contact, a smile, a moment, because you never know who's watching. You never know who's listening. And you definitely never know whose life is tangled up with yours in ways you can't see yet. I thought the lesson was about kindness, but the real message hit me later, when I realized how close I came to being erased, and why someone else wasn't. I'm 65 now. Life didn't magically turn perfect, but it's real again, and that's enough. My granddaughter was born last year. My son actually comes around. I still work at a senior center, just a different one. And trust me, I double-check everything now. Fool me once, right? Most mornings, I still ride the bus. Still get off early. Still walk the last stretch. Some habits don't fade, they evolve. Instead of stopping at a bench, I stop at Samuel's apartment. We drink cheap coffee and argue about history like two professors who never retired. His health is stable. His pension? Partially recovered. Not everything came back, but enough. More than enough. Samuel tells the kids at the library something I think everyone needs to hear. History isn't locked in books, he says. It's happening right now, and you're part of it whether you realize it or not. That hits harder than people expect. When folks ask me what I learned from all this, they think I'll talk about corruption, danger, or how evil hides behind friendly smiles. Yeah, that's real, but it's not the lesson that stayed with me. This is what stayed. Kindness is loud, even when it's quiet. It leaves footprints. It creates witnesses. I was a lonely widow with pocket change. Samuel was a homeless man the world ignored. Together, we exposed a crime ring, sent powerful people to prison, saved lives, and built a friendship that changed us both forever. All because I stopped one morning. So if there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this. Don't rush past people. Don't assume you don't matter. And don't underestimate small choices. Because the person you stop for today might be the reason you're alive tomorrow. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. You never know who might need to hear this next.